Eli Archer stepped off the transport pod and looked around the sprawling campus of the Intergalactic Academy on Zerath. The air smelled faintly of metals and strange flowers that glowed softly in the twilight. Towering buildings stretched toward the sky, their surfaces smooth and reflective, shimmering in colors he had never seen before. Alien students of every imaginable shape and size walked between the buildings, some hovering slightly above the ground, others floating in bubbles of light. It was a place that humans had long only heard about in stories, a place where knowledge of the entire galaxy was shared and studied. And now, Eli was here, one of the few humans among hundreds of alien students. Eli adjusted the strap of his bag and tried to keep his nervous excitement in check. He had always been brave, some would even say reckless, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of so many different species studying together. He noticed a group of tall, thin beings with transparent skin, revealing glowing blue veins beneath, discussing something in a musical language he could barely understand. Nearby, a group of small, furry creatures scurried around carrying floating books, their eyes darting in all directions. It was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. Humans were rare here, and he could feel the curious glances of alien students and instructors alike. He knew he was different, but he also knew that difference could be an advantage. The Academy's main hall was massive, with high ceilings that curved like the inside of a giant shell. Holographic projections floated in midair, showing planets, stars, and strange alien creatures. Eli followed the crowd into a classroom where a large number of students had already gathered. The room smelled faintly of herbs and chemicals, and strange containers filled with brightly colored liquids lined the walls. In the center stood an alien instructor, a tall, muscular figure with golden scales and multiple arms, each tipped with delicate fingers that moved with precision. His eyes glowed faintly as he scanned the room, his gaze stopping for a moment on Eli, the only human in the class. "Welcome, students," the instructor said in a voice that resonated in multiple tones at once, a sound that made the hair on Eli's arms stand up. "Today we begin a lesson on deadly poisons. These substances are dangerous to almost every known species. You will observe, analyze, and learn, but under no circumstances should you touch them without authorization." The liquid shimmered unnaturally, as if it had a life of its own. The instructor held it up, and the light from the ceiling caught it perfectly, casting strange reflections across the walls. "This," the instructor said, "is Zerathian Venom X. It is considered lethal to all known species except perhaps humans." A murmur ran through the room. Eli's heart skipped a beat. Humans. Could it be that humans were immune to this deadly poison? He tried not to show his excitement. The other students were too focused on the instructor, fear evident in their expressions. They had no idea what they were missing. The instructor began demonstrating the poison carefully, using holograms to show what it would do to different species. He showed a holographic model of a small alien being, its skin turning gray and stiff within moments of contact with the poison. Another hologram displayed the poison spreading through a creature's veins, stopping its heart within seconds. The students watched in silence, some whispering prayers or murmuring warnings. Eli observed every detail, noting the chemical reaction and the way the poison interacted with the alien biology. To him, it was not just a threat. It was a puzzle, a mystery waiting to be solved. When the instructor was done with the holograms, he moved to a table covered in small vials of different poisons, each labeled with alien names and symbols. "These poisons have been studied for centuries," he said. "Each one can cause death in ways most of you cannot imagine. Observe carefully, learn what you can. Do not, under any circumstances, taste or touch them." He studied the labels, the colors, the way the liquids moved in their containers. There was a rhythm to it, a pattern in the chaos. He realized that the poisons were not just dangerous. They were precise, each designed to affect a specific species in a unique way. And yet the instructor had hinted that humans might be immune to at least some of them. That thought made Eli's pulse quicken. After the lecture, students were divided into small groups for observation exercises. Eli was placed in a group with 3 other alien students: a small, chameleon-like being with shifting colors, a tall, crystalline humanoid, and a rotund, tentacled creature with multiple eyes. They were all nervous, but Eli's calm presence seemed to reassure them, even if only slightly. As the instructor demonstrated the safe handling of the liquids, Eli's attention was drawn to a vial of Zerathian Venom X that had been accidentally knocked slightly out of line. It wobbled precariously, and for a moment, Eli's instincts told him to reach out and stabilize it. He hesitated, remembering the instructor's warning, but he could not stop himself from observing it closely. The way the liquid swirled, the way it caught the light, it was mesmerizing. "Do not touch that," hissed the chameleon-like student, her colors shifting to a bright red. Eli smiled gently. "I'm just looking," he said. He leaned closer, noting the chemical patterns in the liquid. To him, it was like looking at a strange, alien juice, vibrant and alive. The group moved to another part of the room, where more poisons were displayed. Eli took careful notes in his holographic pad, recording the colors, densities, and reactions of each poison with simulated tissue samples provided by the instructor. The other students were timid, some shaking as they performed the exercises. Eli, however, felt a sense of calm focus. He understood that fear could cloud judgment, and he refused to let it rule him. During a break, Eli wandered toward the window of the classroom, gazing at the academy grounds below. Alien gardens glowed softly, and in the distance, he could see students practicing levitation and energy manipulation. The beauty of the place was breathtaking, but Eli's mind kept returning to the lesson. He realized that humans, in their resilience and adaptability, might be capable of understanding the poisons in ways even the aliens could not anticipate. It was a thought both thrilling and humbling. When the class resumed, the instructor introduced a simulation exercise. Each student was to analyze the effect of a new poison on a holographic model, predicting the outcome and suggesting antidotes. The aliens struggled, their predictions often proving wrong. Eli, however, found himself anticipating the reactions with surprising accuracy. His observations of the chemical patterns, combined with an instinctive understanding of biological processes, allowed him to see what the other students could not. The instructor's multiple eyes focused on him, and Eli felt a shiver of awareness. "Interesting," the instructor murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "This human may indeed hold knowledge beyond what we have learned." Eli smiled faintly, sensing both the curiosity and caution in the alien's words. He knew he was different, but here, difference could become strength. At the end of the class, the students were dismissed, but Eli stayed behind, carefully reviewing the notes he had taken. He examined the vials, the colors, and the subtle movements of the liquids, mentally calculating their properties. He realized that while the poisons were deadly to most species, the patterns suggested that they might interact with humans in unexpected ways. The thought was exhilarating. Eli understood that he was standing at the edge of discovery, where fear could be turned into knowledge, where caution could meet curiosity, and where humans could prove themselves not weak but extraordinary. As he left the classroom, Eli felt a strange sense of purpose. He was a human in a galaxy that often underestimated his species. He had arrived with curiosity, but he was leaving with a sense of potential, a quiet confidence that humans might one day teach even the most advanced aliens a lesson in resilience, ingenuity, and courage. The lesson on deadly poison had begun, and for Eli it was not a warning, it was a challenge, a puzzle waiting to be solved. And he could not wait to drink it in. Eli returned to the classroom the next day with a sense of excitement that was hard to contain. The academy was quiet in the early hours, the alien gardens outside glowing with soft light, and strange creatures floating lazily between the buildings. He had spent the previous night going over every detail of the poisons they had studied, and his mind was racing with questions. Why was Zerathian Venom X so different from the others? Could humans really interact with it in a way no other species could? As he stepped into the room, the alien students were already gathered, whispering nervously among themselves. The chameleon-like student from yesterday shot him a glance, her skin flickering in anxious colors. Eli gave her a small smile. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I'm just here to learn." She relaxed slightly, though her eyes still showed curiosity and caution. The instructor arrived moments later, his golden scales gleaming in the soft light. His many arms moved with precision as he began preparing the poisons for today's exercises. "Today, we will study the effects of these substances on living tissue," he announced. "Observation is key. Predicting outcomes, understanding patterns, and respecting the danger are the foundations of knowledge. Remember, one careless move could be catastrophic." This time, the models simulated various biological reactions to the poisons, showing how enzymes, blood cells, and nervous systems responded differently depending on the species. Most of the students watched with wide eyes, taking careful notes. Eli, however, noticed something subtle. the way the holographic reaction slowed when applied to a human model. It was a small difference, almost imperceptible, but he saw it immediately. After the demonstration, the students were divided into pairs to perform a controlled experiment. Each pair was given a vial of a non-lethal substance, a holographic model to test it on, and a set of observation tools. Eli was paired with the crystalline humanoid, who regarded him with curiosity. "Human," it said in a voice that sounded like broken glass clinking together, "are you certain you do not fear these substances? Then observe carefully, and we shall learn together." Eli realized that fear was a natural reaction for most species, but it also made them slow to notice the patterns and subtleties in the poisons. He focused, keeping his hands steady, recording every detail, every reaction, and every anomaly he could detect. When it was Eli's turn to approach the vial of Zarathian Venom X, he felt a thrill of curiosity mixed with caution. The instructor was watching closely, his many eyes fixed on him. Eli carefully examined the liquid, noticing the way it seemed to pulse and swirl almost like it was alive. Most students would have shied away, but Eli studied it calmly, his mind analyzing every detail. He saw tiny patterns in the movement, subtle reactions to the air, hints of chemical structures he could almost imagine forming in his mind. During a brief moment of distraction, a droplet of the poison slipped from the vial and hovered in the air before falling onto a holographic model. The model froze, its simulated cells stiffening immediately. The tentacled student gasped and tried to step back. Eli, however, leaned closer, his curiosity pushing him to observe more closely. He realized something remarkable. The poison's reaction was slower than expected in the holographic human model. It was as if human biology neutralized the effects in some way. After the exercise, Eli stayed behind to continue his observations. He took careful notes and compared the reactions of different species, paying special attention to the subtle differences in how the human model interacted with the poison. He realized that humans might have unique enzymes or chemical pathways that could break down substances that were deadly to others. It was a revelation, one that made his heart race with excitement. The instructor approached him quietly, his multiple eyes narrowing. "You seem unusually confident," he said. "Most students would hesitate. Humans are rare here. Your physiology is unusual, yes, but do you truly understand what you are dealing with?" That is how knowledge grows, through careful observation and understanding. The instructor studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but remember, observation is not the same as immunity. Your curiosity must be tempered with caution." He could see patterns others could not, and he had a strange sense that humans were capable of interacting with poisons in ways no alien had yet imagined. Over the next few hours, Eli continued his studies. He analyzed different substances, testing their reactions on holographic models and carefully noting their chemical interactions. He worked quietly, methodically, while other students struggled with hesitation or fear. He began to notice small details, how some liquids responded differently to air, how others changed color when exposed to certain surfaces, and how the enzymes in human biology could potentially neutralize certain toxins. As the day went on, the instructor introduced a new exercise. Students were to predict the effects of a previously unseen poison on a range of species. Most students hesitated, unsure of their calculations or predictions. Eli, however, felt a thrill of anticipation. He studied the chemical composition of the new substance and visualized how it might interact with different biological systems. His predictions were remarkably accurate, far beyond what the other students could achieve. The crystalline humanoid beside him whispered, "How do you perceive so much? Most of us cannot even begin to predict its effect." Eli smiled faintly. "I pay attention. I notice the little things. Patterns are everywhere if you look closely." The alien considered this, tilting its head, then nodded in understanding. Later, during a break, Eli wandered the gardens outside the classroom, reflecting on what he had learned. The glowing plants and floating orbs of light reminded him that the universe was full of mysteries, many of which humans had yet to explore. He realized that his species had an unusual combination of fearlessness and adaptability. While other species relied heavily on caution, humans had a natural curiosity that, when guided carefully, allowed them to discover things others could not. As he returned to the classroom, Eli noticed the instructor observing him from across the room. The alien's gaze was filled with a mix of curiosity and cautious respect. Eli understood that he was changing the way the instructor saw humans, not as fragile or reckless, but as capable, unpredictable, and uniquely suited for discovery. During the final exercise of the day, the instructor presented a challenge: a small, sealed container of a new poison that had no known antidote. Students were to observe it, analyze its properties, and propose a way to neutralize it. Most students froze, fearful of even approaching the container. Eli, however, stepped forward calmly. He examined the liquid, noting the subtle color shifts, the way it reacted to light, and the faint, almost imperceptible patterns in its movement. He took careful notes, comparing the reactions to what he had learned about other poisons. He hypothesized that the enzymes present in human biology might interact with the substance in a unique way, potentially neutralizing it. His mind raced as he formulated a plan for a controlled experiment, using the holographic models as his test subjects. When he presented his findings to the class, the instructor's multiple eyes widened. Eli's predictions were not only accurate but also innovative. He had proposed a method that could allow safe study of the substance, turning what was previously considered deadly into a tool for learning. The other students stared in awe, some whispering among themselves about the human's unusual abilities. By the end of the day, Eli had earned not only the respect of his classmates, but also the cautious admiration of the instructor. The human had proven that careful observation, curiosity, and a fearless approach to learning could uncover truths that even the most advanced species had overlooked. Eli left the classroom with a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. Tomorrow, he thought, he might finally test the most mysterious poison of all, Zorathian Venom X itself. As he walked back to his quarters, Eli reflected on what he had learned. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, seen as fragile or reckless. But he understood something crucial. It was not recklessness that set humans apart, but their curiosity, adaptability, and courage. Where other species saw danger, humans could see patterns, possibilities, and opportunities. Where others hesitated, humans could act wisely, guided by careful observation. Eli smiled to himself as he prepared for the next day. The lesson on deadly poison was far from over, and he knew that each step he took brought him closer to discovering something remarkable. Humans might be few in number, but their unique qualities could change the way the galaxy understood life, danger, and knowledge. And Eli, with his fearless curiosity, was ready to lead the way. The next morning, Eli woke before dawn, feeling a mixture of excitement and focus. He had spent hours in his quarters reviewing every detail of Zorathian Venom X, memorizing its color, its consistency, and the subtle pulses that seemed to ripple through it like tiny waves. Most students would have been paralyzed with fear at the thought of even touching it, but Eli saw it differently. To him, the poison was not only a danger, it was a challenge, a puzzle, and an opportunity to understand the universe in a way few beings ever could. He dressed quickly and walked through the glowing gardens toward the main laboratory. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of alien flowers and the soft hum of energy fields that protected the building. As he entered the laboratory, he saw the other students already assembled, their expressions a mixture of awe and nervousness. Most were hesitant to approach the table where the infamous vial of Zorathian Venom X rested. Even the instructor seemed more tense than usual, his golden scales shimmering with subtle shifts of color. Today, the instructor began, his multiple arms moving in precise gestures, you will observe the effects of this substance on controlled holographic models. Remember, this poison is considered lethal to nearly every known species. Observation is required. Caution is mandatory. Respect the danger. His eyes, bright and intense, lingered on Eli for a moment longer than on any other student. There was curiosity there, but also a hint of caution. Eli nodded, his mind already running through the possibilities. He carefully approached the table, noting the way the poison shimmered in the soft light. To most, it was a terrifying sight, but Eli saw patterns, small shifts in color, subtle vibrations in the liquid, the way the surface seemed almost alive. He remembered the observations from the previous day. The human holographic model had reacted differently, more slowly than other species. Could it be that humans were uniquely capable of interacting with this substance? The thought thrilled him. The instructor began demonstrating with holographic models. A small alien creature was exposed to the poison, its cells freezing and shutting down in moments. Another model, representing a crystalline species, cracked and dissolved almost immediately. The students watched in silence, many covering their eyes or holding their hands to their mouths. Eli observed quietly, noting every reaction, every delay, every subtle difference. When it was his turn, Eli carefully picked up the small container of poison, still sealed but open enough to allow him to see its patterns clearly. The room seemed to grow quieter, as if the very air was holding its breath. Other students watched with wide eyes, unsure if he would follow instructions or act recklessly. Eli, however, felt calm. Fear did not rule him. Curiosity did. He reached for the holographic human model and carefully applied the simulated poison. To the astonishment of the class, the model showed almost no negative reaction. The poison's spread was slower, its effects dampened, as though it was meeting resistance from something within the human biology. Eli's eyes lit up. This was exactly what he had suspected. Humans were not just resistant, they might have a natural way of neutralizing the poison entirely. The instructor's multiple eyes widened. He leaned closer, studying Eli's hands and the holographic display. "Fascinating," he murmured. "This, human physiology may hold capabilities we did not expect. Carefully proceed." To truly learn, he would need to experiment carefully, step by step, respecting the danger while testing the limits. He adjusted the holographic models, comparing reactions across multiple species. Every time he applied the poison to a non-human model, the expected destructive effects occurred. But on the human model, it slowed, hesitated, and then seemed to dissolve harmlessly. Other students whispered among themselves, astonished. The tentacled creature muttered, How can this be? Every species fails, yet it is as if the human is untouched." Eli smiled faintly, though he did not draw attention to himself. He understood that this was not magic or luck. It was biology and careful observation. The instructor paused and allowed the students to attempt their own experiments. Most hesitated, but Eli moved carefully, taking note of each reaction. He began to hypothesize why humans might react differently. Perhaps the enzymes in human biology could break down toxic molecules, or maybe the human immune system had subtle chemical pathways that neutralized foreign substances quickly. The more he studied, the more patterns he began to recognize. By midday, Eli had gathered enough data to attempt a controlled experiment beyond the holographic models. The instructor approached him, his expression a mix of caution and curiosity. "If you choose to proceed, you may use the prepared safety chamber," he said. "It is reinforced and all protocols are in place. But I warn you, this is unprecedented. One wrong move could have consequences we cannot predict." The room was filled with monitoring equipment, lights blinking, sensors scanning the air and his movements. He studied the poison for several moments, noting the tiny pulses and color shifts. Then, in a controlled and deliberate motion, he picked up the vial. His heart beat steadily, his mind focused. Slowly, he tilted the vial, just enough to let a droplet fall onto a small platform that had been prepared for safe interaction. To his amazement, the drop began to dissolve harmlessly. The monitoring equipment showed no dangerous reaction, and the air remained stable. Eli's eyes widened. The poison was reacting differently than it had with any other species. It was almost as if it recognized something in human biology and adjusted itself. He carefully documented everything, noting the exact moment the drop began to neutralize, the subtle chemical reaction, and the complete lack of harm. The instructor's voice came over the speakers. "Remarkable. Continue with caution, human. You are observing something we never expected." Eli nodded, feeling a surge of excitement. He realized that humans were not just participants in this lesson, they were redefining it. He spent the next hour experimenting with small amounts of the poison, always within the safety chamber, always careful to respect the potential danger. Each time, the poison reacted harmlessly. Each time, he recorded every detail, creating notes that would astonish even the most advanced alien scientists. He began to understand that humans could turn substances that were deadly to others into something neutral, even safe. Outside the chamber, other students watched in awe. The chameleon-like student's skin shifted through a spectrum of colors, reflecting her amazement. The crystalline humanoid leaned closer to the monitoring screen, its eyes wide with astonishment. Even the tentacled creature seemed speechless, its multiple limbs stilling as it observed the process. By the afternoon, the instructor allowed Eli to leave the chamber. He stepped out, careful to maintain calm and composure. "You have done exceptionally well," the instructor said. "This is not merely observation. You have demonstrated something that could change our understanding of human physiology, and perhaps even how we approach these substances entirely." There was much more to learn, many more poisons to study, and countless mysteries of human biology that the galaxy had yet to uncover. He had proven that fear was not the same as respect, and that careful curiosity could reveal truths even the most advanced species had missed. Later, as the students left the laboratory, Eli stayed behind for a few minutes, studying the poison once more. He thought about the possibilities. If humans could neutralize substances that were deadly to others, what other secrets might their biology hold? What other challenges in the galaxy could be turned into opportunities with careful observation and fearless curiosity? The instructor approached quietly. "Human," he said, "your actions today have changed how we see your species. We must study this further. Your biology is extraordinary." Eli nodded, realizing that he was part of something larger now, a bridge between species, a symbol of human potential. He left the laboratory with a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. Tomorrow, he thought, he might begin studying even more dangerous substances, substances that had been feared for centuries. But he knew that with careful observation, respect for the rules, and an unshakable curiosity, humans could accomplish what others considered impossible. As he walked through the glowing corridors of the academy, Eli realized something profound. Humans were often underestimated, seen as fragile, reckless, or simple. Yet in their curiosity, intelligence, and adaptability, they carried a unique power, one that could challenge the assumptions of the most advanced civilizations. The lesson on deadly poison had begun with fear, but for Eli, it had become a journey of discovery, understanding, and potential. By the time he reached his quarters, Eli felt a quiet determination. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, mysteries, and challenges. But he also understood that humans were capable of facing those challenges with a combination of curiosity, courage, and careful thinking that few others possessed. And tomorrow, the adventure would continue, with Zorathian Venom X and the countless other poisons waiting to reveal their secrets to the fearless human who drank knowledge like it was the sweetest juice in the universe. The next day, the Academy was buzzing more than ever. Word of Eli's success with Zorathian Venom X had spread quietly through the student body. Aliens whispered in corners, their eyes widening whenever a human was mentioned. The instructors, too, were eager to observe Eli, though their expressions were carefully neutral. No one wanted to underestimate the human who had defied centuries of expectation, but the air was thick with both curiosity and caution. Eli arrived at the laboratory early, carrying his holographic pad filled with notes, calculations, and observations. He felt a quiet sense of responsibility. Today, he would not just observe, he would help others learn to understand substances that had been considered deadly for centuries. Humans, he realized, were not only resilient, they were capable of turning fear into discovery. The instructor greeted him with a nod. "Human, we have prepared a new exercise for you," he said. "It involves multiple poisons, some of which have no known antidotes. Your task is to analyze them, predict their reactions, and demonstrate a safe method for studying them." Eli's eyes lit up. This was exactly the challenge he had been waiting for. He approached the table where the new poisons were displayed. Each vial shimmered in strange, unnatural colors. Some glowed faintly, while others seemed to pulse with energy. The instructor's eyes scanned him, as if measuring his readiness. Eli took a deep breath and began studying the liquids, noticing patterns and chemical interactions that were invisible to most species. Other students watched from a distance. They were hesitant to come closer, fearing the substances. Even the bravest among them remained cautious. Eli, however, moved carefully, analyzing each poison's movement, its density, and its reaction to light and air. He documented everything in real time on his holographic pad. The instructor gestured toward a small, sealed container of a deep violet liquid. "This is a combination of poisons previously thought incompatible. If mismanaged, it could be lethal to every species we know. Observe and prepare your analysis." Eli examined the vial closely. He noted the tiny ripples moving through the liquid, subtle shifts that suggested chemical interactions occurring within the container itself. To most students, it was terrifying, but Eli saw opportunity. He carefully prepared a holographic human model to simulate the poison's effects. As he applied the liquid, the model initially stiffened, but then, slowly, the reaction began to neutralize itself. Eli watched intently, noting how human biology seemed to create enzymes or chemical pathways that broke down the substances safely. His mind raced with excitement. Humans were not just resilient, They were innovative by nature, capable of turning danger into learning. The instructor leaned forward, his expression a mixture of awe and careful concern. Remarkable. Human, your predictions are precise. You see patterns we have overlooked for centuries. Eli felt a quiet thrill. He was not seeking praise, but he understood that this acknowledgement meant something larger. Humans could teach even the most advanced species new ways to understand the universe. Eli then turned to the other students. Carefully, he explained what he had observed, demonstrating how the poisons interacted differently with human biology. He showed them that fear could obscure understanding, and that careful observation, combined with reasoning, could reveal hidden truths. The students listened intently, some of them visibly shaking off their hesitation as they began to see possibilities instead of danger. The tentacled creature who had been most fearful the previous days spoke first. "Human, you are teaching us. How can this be? We thought humans fragile, reckless." Eli smiled gently. "We are not reckless, we are curious. And curiosity, guided carefully, can turn even the most dangerous substances into opportunities to learn." The creature's multiple eyes blinked in slow understanding, and it slowly shifted closer to observe the simulations. Over the next several hours, Eli guided the students through experiments using holographic models, demonstrating safe methods for analyzing poisons, predicting reactions, and understanding chemical interactions. The classroom, once filled with fear and hesitation, began to hum with engagement. Alien students asked questions, made predictions, and tested their own hypotheses under Eli's careful guidance. He remained calm, methodical, and encouraging, ensuring that every student felt capable of learning. Meanwhile, the instructor observed silently, his multiple eyes tracking every movement, every calculation, every interaction. He realized that Eli had done more than survive exposure to a deadly substance. He had transformed the way the entire classroom thought about learning and danger. Humans, he concluded, possessed qualities that were not only unusual but potentially revolutionary: courage without recklessness, curiosity without ignorance, and an innate ability to turn risk into knowledge. As the day progressed, the instructor introduced a new exercise. Multiple substances were combined in small, controlled amounts, creating a complex mixture that had previously been considered untouchable. Most students froze, unsure how to proceed. Eli, however, stepped forward. He carefully analyzed the mixture, noting its properties, the subtle interactions between the components, and the potential reactions with human biology. He applied the mixture to a holographic human model, observing closely. The reactions began normally, showing signs of stress in the model, but then, as before, the effects slowed and neutralized. The other students gasped. Even the instructor could not hide a flicker of amazement. Eli explained what was happening. Human enzymes, chemical pathways, and adaptive biology were interacting with the substances in a way that neutralized danger. One by one, the other students began to test their hypotheses, guided by Eli's observations. Slowly, they learned that substances they had feared for years could be studied safely if approached with understanding, method, and patience. The classroom, once filled with fear, was now filled with excitement, questions, and discovery. Alien students began to see humans not as fragile or reckless, but as a species capable of turning danger into opportunity through intelligence, observation, and courage. The instructor finally spoke, his voice calm but filled with meaning. "Human, you have done more than survive. You have taught us that knowledge is not only about caution, it is about understanding, observation, and courage. You have shown that humans possess qualities we did not fully appreciate." Eli nodded, feeling both pride and humility. He understood that this recognition was not about him alone, it was about the potential of his species. As the day drew to a close, Eli remained behind to document his findings further. He carefully recorded the chemical interactions, the neutralization processes, and the observations that had allowed him to guide the students. The vials of poison, once terrifying, now seemed like puzzles waiting to be solved. Eli realized that his unique ability to interact safely with these substances could have applications beyond the classroom: medicine, chemistry, even diplomacy between species who feared one another. Outside the laboratory, the alien students whispered excitedly, sharing what they had learned. The chameleon-like student approached Eli, her colors slowly shifting to brighter shades. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "We were afraid, now we understand." Eli smiled. "Fear is natural," he said, But understanding transforms it. Curiosity can guide us safely through what we do not know. Your species demonstrates that observation, intelligence, and courage can reveal truths that fear alone cannot. Learn from this example, and remember that understanding is always more powerful than fear. He had not only survived what others considered impossible, but had transformed the way an entire academy viewed danger and learning. He understood that humans were unique not because they were fearless, but because they combined intelligence, curiosity, and adaptability in a way that allowed them to turn potential threats into discoveries. That night, as Eli walked through the glowing gardens toward his quarters, he reflected on the day's events. Humans were rare in the galaxy, often underestimated, yet capable of feats that others could scarcely imagine. The poisons of Zerath had been thought untouchable, lethal to every species, yet here he was, having not only survived but helped others understand them. Eli smiled to himself. The lesson on deadly poison had begun as a test, a challenge filled with fear. But it had become something much more significant, a demonstration of human ingenuity, courage, and the ability to turn danger into opportunity. He knew there were still many challenges ahead, many substances yet to be studied, but he felt ready. Humans were not just participants in the galaxy, they were innovators, explorers, and problem solvers. As he entered his quarters, Eli reviewed his notes one last time. Tomorrow, he thought, he might face even greater challenges, substances more complex than Zerathian Venom X, but he felt confident. Curiosity, careful observation, and respect for the rules had brought him this far. They would carry him further still. Humans were unpredictable, capable, and uniquely resilient, and through him the Academy and perhaps the galaxy was beginning to understand just how extraordinary his species could be. Eli lay down to rest, his mind alive with questions, hypotheses, and possibilities. The lesson on deadly poison was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. And he knew that with patience, intelligence, and courage, humans could unlock secrets that others had long considered beyond reach. He closed his eyes, feeling a sense of purpose and anticipation. The galaxy was full of mysteries, but he knew that humans, with their unique abilities, could explore them safely, creatively, and boldly. And tomorrow, another day of discovery awaited, a day when humans would once again demonstrate that fear could be transformed into understanding, danger into opportunity, and mystery into knowledge. The morning sun rose over the glowing gardens of the Intergalactic Academy, casting soft, colorful light across the courtyard. Eli Archer walked through the corridors with a sense of calm purpose. Today was not just another lesson. It was the culmination of everything he had learned and discovered over the past days. Word of his observations and experiments with Zerathian Venom X and other poisons had spread beyond the classroom. Students and instructors alike whispered about the human who had turned fear into understanding, a being who had shown the galaxy that humans were more capable than anyone had imagined. As he entered the main laboratory, Eli noticed the energy in the room. Students gathered around tables, their alien forms filled with curiosity and cautious excitement. Some had come early to observe him, others had been sent by instructors to witness the human's approach to the latest challenge. The instructor himself, his golden scales gleaming, regarded Eli with an intensity that combined pride, caution, and genuine wonder. "Human," the instructor began, his voice resonating through the room, "today, you will demonstrate your understanding of these substances in a way that all students can learn from. You have already shown remarkable insight and caution. Today, you will show that humans are capable not only of surviving what others cannot, but of teaching others to do the same." He approached the table, where several sealed vials of substances, previously considered untouchable, rested under reinforced glass. Each glowed with strange, unnatural colors and emitted faint pulses of energy. To any other species, they would be terrifying. To Eli, they were puzzles waiting to be solved. He began his analysis carefully, taking note of every subtle movement, every change in color, and every interaction between substances. He explained his observations to the gathered students, showing them how careful attention and understanding could reveal patterns that fear alone obscured. "These poisons are dangerous," he said calmly, "but danger does not mean impossibility. Observe carefully, respect the rules, and you will find that even the deadliest substances can be understood, and sometimes even neutralized." Slowly, they began to replicate his methods, applying substances to holographic models under his guidance. Each time, the effects that had once seemed lethal to every species were analyzed safely and methodically. Eli moved from table to table, helping students predict outcomes, test hypotheses, and observe reactions. He noticed the tentacled creature, who had been the most fearful in previous lessons, now working carefully but confidently. The chameleon-like student shifted her colors in delight as her predictions matched the results. Even the crystalline humanoid, who had always approached experiments with cold precision, allowed a subtle flicker of admiration to cross its face. The instructor watched silently, recording observations, making notes, and occasionally interjecting with questions. It was clear that Eli's influence was transforming the way the academy approached learning. Fear was no longer the primary guide. Understanding and curiosity had taken its place. Humans, he realized, were capable of turning caution into creativity, danger into discovery. Then Eli turned his attention to Zerathian Venom X, the substance that had started it all. The vial sat on a small pedestal, its purple liquid pulsing faintly as if aware of the attention it received. Other students shivered or stepped back instinctively, but Eli approached calmly. He held the vial carefully, observing the subtle movements and changes in the liquid. "This is not just a poison," he said to the room. "It is a puzzle. We can learn from it if we pay attention and proceed carefully." Eli explained what was happening in simple terms, describing how human enzymes and chemical pathways could interact with the poison to render it harmless. "Humans are unique," he said, "not because we are fearless, but because we can combine observation, understanding, and adaptability. That is why the poison reacts differently with us. That is why we can learn from what others fear. Today, your lessons will change the way we study poisons forever." The classroom, once tense with fear, was alive with energy, questions, and discovery. Eli's presence had transformed it from a place of dread into a place of learning. At one point, the instructor presented a challenge, a mixture of several substances, each considered highly lethal on its own. The students froze, unsure how to approach it. Eli examined the mixture carefully, noting the interactions between components. He demonstrated how the mixture could be studied safely using controlled application and observation. Slowly, the students followed his lead, applying their understanding step by step. The results were astonishing. Each substance's effects could be neutralized, predicted, or safely analyzed. By afternoon, the lesson had reached its climax. Eli prepared one final demonstration, showing how human biology interacted with Zerathian Venom X and other complex substances in ways no alien biology could. He carefully applied the poison to a holographic model, demonstrating the neutralization process in real time. The students watched in silence, completely absorbed. When he finished, a cheer of amazement echoed through the laboratory. The students had witnessed what they once thought impossible, a human turning deadly substances into learning opportunities. Some whispered to each other about how humans were underestimated, how courage combined with intelligence could surpass fear, and how knowledge could transform danger into discovery. The instructor finally spoke, his voice carrying a sense of reverence. "Today, you have proven something extraordinary. Humans are not fragile. Humans are not reckless. Humans are curious, adaptable, and capable of turning even the deadliest substances into tools for learning. Your actions will be remembered for generations, human." He understood that this moment was larger than himself. It was about the potential of his species, the value of curiosity, and the importance of learning through observation and careful experimentation. Humans, he realized, were not only capable of surviving challenges, but of teaching others to do the same. As the students began to leave, still buzzing with excitement and awe, Eli remained behind to organize his notes. He reviewed the data from the day's experiments, carefully documenting every reaction, every observation, and every insight. He understood that this information could change the way the galaxy approached poisons, toxins, and dangerous substances. Humans, he realized, could contribute in ways no one had anticipated. Later, as he walked through the glowing gardens toward his quarters, Eli reflected on the journey. The lesson on deadly poison had begun with fear and hesitation, but it had grown into something far greater, a demonstration of human ingenuity, courage, and the power of careful observation. Humans were not only participants in the galaxy, they were innovators, teachers, and explorers. He passed other students along the way, many of whom now looked at him with admiration rather than fear. The tentacled creature waved a limb in greeting, the chameleon-like student's colors shifted to bright hues in acknowledgement, and even the crystalline humanoid offered a nod of respect. Eli felt a quiet warmth in his chest. He had not sought recognition, but he understood that his actions had made a difference. Back in his quarters, Eli reviewed his notes one last time before resting. He thought about the days ahead and the countless mysteries the galaxy still held. There would be new substances to study, new challenges to face, and new opportunities to demonstrate the unique capabilities of humans. He understood that courage alone was not enough. Intelligence, curiosity, and careful observation were just as important. Humans combined these qualities naturally, and that combination made them powerful in ways few species could imagine. Eli lay down, letting his mind wander through possibilities and questions. What other substances might react differently with humans? What other discoveries could be made by studying the unknown with curiosity and caution? The lesson on deadly poison was over for now, but he knew that learning never truly ended. Every discovery opened the door to new mysteries, and every mystery was an opportunity to understand the universe better. He closed his eyes, feeling a sense of purpose and anticipation. Humans were rare, but their potential was extraordinary. Through careful observation, courage, and intelligence, they could turn danger into opportunity, fear into understanding, and challenges into discoveries. Eli smiled, imagining the future, imagining the possibilities. He knew that humans, no matter how small in number, could leave an indelible mark on the galaxy. Tomorrow, he thought, would bring new lessons, new substances, and new challenges. But he was ready. Humans were capable of more than anyone had realized, and through him, the galaxy had begun to understand just how extraordinary his species could be. The lesson on deadly poison had started as a challenge, but it had become a testament to human potential, a testament to curiosity, courage, and the power to transform fear into knowledge. Eli drifted into sleep, knowing that he had proven something important. Humans were not just participants in the universe. They were innovators, explorers, and teachers, capable of turning the deadliest obstacles into stepping stones for understanding and discovery. And through him, the galaxy would never forget that lesson.